On this planet of 6 billion people, there are 6 billion stories. This is one of them. It's about one man's life. It's about UFOs which he has filmed in the high heavens, and ETs, and orbs, and the gods who created humanity. It's a true story about a man who has come back from the dead to a planet that is undergoing dramatic Earth changes that will affect all of us much sooner than we might care to admit. It is one story among 6 billion stories. It is James Gilliland's story.
Two ships coming in.
Yeah.
I got them both.
Ooh, they're both powered up. Hello.
They're both powering up.
Yeah.
Holy smokes, I got both of them powering up.
Yeah.
Got them. Got them. Two ships, a double powering up.
Right. Look at that.
You know, as far as the skeptics, I find it really humorous, basically, because I've had so many experiences. There's no doubt in my mind that this is a real event going on, and the evidence that we have here is overwhelming.
I got them on film. I got the laser too. The laser's showing up on the film.
See what I mean?
Now it's moving.
Blink it with the laser like 3 and then 2.
What we are seeing against the backdrop of space itself is UFO footage shot over a period of years by James Gilliland, a man who's built a sanctuary near Mount Adams in the state of Washington. James has experienced contact with ETs, off-worlders from other galaxies and dimensions. But he's not the only one to wonder about these visitors from elsewhere.
The main thing is we have professional people that are air traffic controllers, pilots. They know what they're looking at. And Air Force, we've had Air Force base commanders here. They know what they're looking at. And they also know, again, we've had some people that are from the alphabet agencies and skunk works that know what we've back engineered as well. And they said, these aren't ours. One of the ships that we filmed is just beautiful, and it comes in and it's actually pink in the middle, has blue on the outside, turquoise at the top and the bottom. You see these rotating fields on this ship, and it's pulsing like a heart.
Look how bright it is.
I got him.
I don't have them.
I got him. I got him. Check him out, man. He's going.
I got them.
You should see the field around this guy. I got him all the way. Come on, light her up. Do something.
Every time I zoom in, I lose it.
Oh, look at it. Look, he's pulsing now. This is the first UFO on this camera.
And the physicists I had look at this, they said, we have no idea what that is. They said, all we can say is there's extremely high technology involved in this, in electronics, and it's operating in some kind of a light spectrum, and it's beyond anything that we have. A lot of these experiences that I've had have helped me to understand the true nature of man, which is, in truth, a multidimensional being existing on a vibrational continuum. And almost all the physicists believe right now that we can measure and experience less than 1% of the universe that we live in. There's another 99% out there. They also know, according to the latest superstring theory and things of that nature, that there's at least 11 dimensions out there beyond this dimension. And you look at all the diversity of life in just this dimension alone, and add 10 more dimensions to that, you can imagine what's out there. And if you look at this physical universe we're in, with 200 billion suns with planets revolving around them, and now they know there's at least 500 billion galaxies out there with the same effect. whole new galaxies and universes are being created daily. The creation is ongoing. So I'm just saying, according to the science that we know today, the science is there to explain all of these events, and my experiences fit within that science. But if people just believe they're a body and a personality, that's their reality. It's a very limited reality, but that's their reality, and you can't argue with somebody if they don't have any reference points or the understanding of these other dimensions.
In 1947, over Mount Rainier, Washington, pilot Kenneth Arnold saw a group of flying saucers. Since then, the Washington Cascades have changed dramatically. The eruption of Mount St. Helens in 1980 killed scores of people and changed the landscape forever. It's now a tourist attraction. Nearby Mount Adams, where those flying saucers disappeared, is still a focal point of UFO activity. James was drawn there after near-death experiences, contact and abductions.
The beings that we were connecting with were Nordic, more Nordic-looking, very advanced, and there was more than one group. They were the ones that were initiating the experience, but there's others involved too with it as well. But those were the childhood experiences. I was here at the ranch for 10 years doing the intense spiritual practices and the meditation work and assisting others in process-oriented work and intersensitivity training. And one day I was in deep meditation and I started hearing communication, a transmission in my head. And it was a beautiful transmission about the awakening and healing of humanity and the earth, and how we have to rise up in consciousness and start living in harmony with each other and the planet, and in the competition and the greed and the separation. And it's a very beautiful message. And I asked, where's this coming from? And because there's many, many levels of consciousness that we can attune to with beings all along those levels. And they said we're actually coming, from fifth and sixth dimension is what we're working in. And they said, but in truth, we're coming from a ship. And that was when I said, okay, I'm done. My imagination is run amok. I quit. I'm going to go out and plant some trees. I need to get grounded here because this is getting too weird. I didn't even make it to the front door when my two sisters came up banging on the door and said, "Did you see it? Did you see it?" And I said, "See what?" And they said, "There was a ship hovering right over the sanctuary here." So that was the first communication I had, where I had to incorporate the ships with my spirituality.
It's been at least a 20-year project for James Gilliland to build his way up from bare dirt to the point that he had at least the shell of a conference hall established on a sanctuary. And although he's had help from some quarters, he's had to deal with opposition from others. But the dream has kept him going, and by mid-2006, he was ready to stage the Science, Spirit, and World Transformation Conference that would include speakers who would throw a bright light on the true history of humanity, the art of diplomacy with ETs, coming Earth changes, and explain what orbs are. It was a conference for open minds and important questions that attracted people from throughout the United States and overseas, all interested in contact, and important questions like, where did we come from, and why are we here? But as Dr. Michael Ledwith, one-time advisor to the Pope, would say,
I think any enlightened being that was visiting this Earth from outside would have felt it was a failed experiment that we had here. Given the wars, the persecutions, all of the retrograde activity that's going on, would it not be better, to let it self-destruct, which, if we hadn't been helped, would have happened?
Many believe life itself arose on Earth exclusively, and that somehow it's man's destiny to populate the vast and empty reaches of space. But ancient texts and legends and teachers tell of a different history, a past in which very advanced civilizations visited Earth, terraformed the planet, created humans through genetic engineering, then left to allow us to evolve at our own pace.
If we understand that the Anunnaki, as they taught us, and all the ancient records that we still have, they came around 432,000 years ago, colonized the planet, were taking huge amounts of gold out, had a rebellion in their gold mines 200,000 years ago. They created us as a species by crossing Homo erectus and their Anunnaki genes.
In the biblical manuscripts, the stories of the creation of the earth,
The ancient occupants, the Nephilim, the giants, are just scattered here and there. In the Zohar, in the Kabbalah, they are replete with them. They were not sterilized from these records.
And what the exopolitics model holds is that we live in a highly populated universe, populated by intelligent, evolving civilizations operating under universal law with some form of governance systems mediated by universe politics, and we here on Earth are just now becoming aware of this.
Historically, in conflicts, in wars, what one side, typically what both sides do, is that they depict the other side using these stereotypes of the enemy. And so you create an enemy, you stereotype them. Typically, you motivate people to go out and kill those on the other side by inculcating them with this very deep indoctrination of them being the enemy.
The orbs are many different things. They're non-physical beings. They're coming from a higher dimension than we are. When we die, we leave the body, we move up through the spine, we come on out and we blast on out as a light sphere. And we become an orb. So some of these orbs are discarnate beings. Some orbs are ultra-dimensional beings coming from a much higher frequency. Some of the orbs are nature spirits.
You see the way the orbs are fragmenting? They're going into a vortex there. And they start to lose their form. I'm still there, to show how dense they are. Now, do you see above my head down the right there? The core of the vortex is beginning to establish. This is spinning. And the orbs have become like shreds of white cloth, disappearing, losing form, going into the torsion field. And this is when it's really beginning to rotate, and there's the vortex fully established.
You know, I've been here 20 years doing intense spiritual work and practices and meditation and anchoring the energy in here, and which is what opened the door to the ET connections. They have the technology to actually, they can take you out of bed physically, put you on the ship, and then put you right back in bed. But it's so vivid what happened is that you would think it was a dream. And they just flew me around the area, and they flew me next to a fire tower. And there's people in the fire tower that were staying there, because you can stay in these fire towers if you make arrangements. And there was an elderly couple and a young boy in there. And so I saw the kid grab some crayons, and he was drawing a picture of the ship. Now, the weird part of this is a couple, 2-3 weeks later, I think it's Jeff Gianola's, his name, was doing a special on Town Hall about UFOs in the area. And here's this elderly man there talking about his wife and his grandchild were there in the fire tower, and they finally calmed down and they felt a very loving presence, and the kid actually drew a picture of the ship and he held the picture up. And so I go, oh my God, you know, that was real. I had a golden ball of energy. I was actually in the bathtub at the time, and I said, I'm really tired of all this high-flying activity and the power-ups and the turns and everything. I said, that's all great, but what the heck is my involvement here? Why am I involved in this? I really want to know. And I said, you know, I don't care if this kills me. I need to know the answer to this. 3 gold balls of energy come down and hit me in the chest, and the next thing I know, I'm on the ship, standing there talking to this beautiful being. And her name's Malia, and she's from the Orion Council of Light. And they have these huge golden plasma ships, which we've filmed over the center here. And they're very ancient. And when I looked at her, I could see all races combined in one person. And she was extremely loving. The first thing I asked her was what the headdress was about, because she had like a bathing cap type thing with gold bars suspended above it. And she said, this is a spiritual form of technology we use to initiate people, to wake people up. And a lot of people have incarnated on the earth for these times, and we're initiating them, waking them up. And then I asked her what the 3 gold balls of energy were, and she said, all of your memories have been returned to you. And after that experience, I had full knowledge of all of my past lives, as well as off-world existences as well. the last thing I said to her was, I want physical proof that this is just not a dream. And she said, you have all the proof you need. Next thing, boom, I was back in the bathtub. And I got up out of the bathtub, and I looked in the mirror, and I had this big burn mark in the middle of my chest where the beam hit me. And we actually took photographs of it, you know, and there was no pain involved with it. It looked painful. There was no pain involved in it at all. And I couldn't deny the event, because every time I got out of the bathtub or looked in the mirror, I had this big red burn mark in the middle of my chest.
Since moving to his sanctuary, James has written books, produced videos, attended conferences, and been interviewed many times. But he's never been asked one very important question about these visitors from elsewhere.
I would have to say the main question that should have been asked is, why are they here? Not, do they exist? Are they real? The evidence is overwhelming that they are here. And we all know they're here. The government knows they're here. All the governments know they're here. And the masses of the people know that they're here. No, let's take it to the next step. Why are they here? And there's different groups with different agendas.
We've often said if someone is enlightened and intelligent enough to build a craft to come here from Alpha Centauri, they must be benign. No, that doesn't follow. All you have to do is not be self-destructive. That's an entirely different thing. We're all into this mawkish, sentimental stuff, you know. They're benign, they love us. Well, some do, and some do not. Just like here, except on a grander scale.
On the sandy wastes at Yucca Flat, Nevada, a new series of atomic explosions are set off. Tanks are among the obsolete pieces of Army equipment being tested in the exercises called Operation Teapot. More than 9,000 servicemen have been assembled at the proving grounds, ready to take their places in forward trenches. The familiar mushroom cloud snakes skyward. The sound and shock waves roll over the men huddled in the trenches. Never before have we had such a close-up view.
We are a civilization that's dedicated to destruction. We build up, we destroy, we start again. We build up, we destroy, we start again. I mean, all our civilizations here on this earth in the past have all been wiped out.
Quickly, the men are ordered to leave their positions. The explosion's radioactive fallout is almost as dangerous as the blast itself.
Nuclear test programs, which began in the Second World War, have been closely monitored by UFOs. They've been taking a close interest because these weapons could potentially annihilate all life on Earth, but also seriously impact other dimensions as well. Yet even though many pilots and astronauts have had personal encounters, not to mention former President Jimmy Carter, all of this is officially denied or dismissed by the military.
One of the speakers that I was really impressed with at the Kona conference just recently, Lieutenant Colonel Sala, retired. He was one of the military people at the console of nuclear missiles in Nebraska at the time when alien spacecraft showed up over the top of the place. There's saucers circling over the gate, and then they move over the missiles and they start turning them off. Like, this is what we can do.
You'll hear people all the time that have very high clearances will say, oh, this is all bunk and it's not real. And a lot of them are telling the truth because that is their truth. It's not real for them because they're out of the loop. One guy in particular was a colonel. He called me one day and he got very upset saying, what are you doing talking about these UFOs and all this other nonsense? It's all a bunch of bunk, and how dare you mislead the people and all of this stuff, and you need to stop it right now. And I said, I only have two things to say to you. And I said, the first thing is, can you spell civilian? And the second thing is that, how come you're out of the loop? And he got really quiet, and I said, you mean to tell me you're a colonel and you don't know about all the back engineering going on and all the UFO activity? And I said, your jets are here chasing them on a constant basis.
This is military. I recognize it's got the green, the red. He's coming in right on the UFO.
He got real quiet, and he said, basically, he said, we just want to catch one of them,
Oh, here they are.
what happens is these jets will come in, and they have some pretty interesting craft up there that are very exotic. They're very quiet and very fast.
Okay, here's a obvious military jet coming right over us. It's got a strobe and 2 lights. Again, these are totally obvious, and it's obvious these aren't the UFOs that we've been filming.
And they come in on these UFOs, and the UFO will just be sitting there. This jet comes screaming in on this UFO. All of a sudden the UFO just disappears. Jet goes by, reappears again. You know, jet makes a big long turn, comes back, you know, vectors in on the ship again, the ship disappears, you know, it goes by and then reappears. So they can just jump dimensions. They can jump out of this reality into a whole different reality.
Skeptics argue that UFOs are constrained by Newtonian physics, and even at the speed of light, it'd take decades to travel from star to star. But quantum physics says action at a distance enables virtually instantaneous information transfer. And it's these secrets of science that advanced ETs apparently use to bypass time as we know it and appear where and when they choose.
Hey, you guys! Oh, come on, light up again. Galactic Exchange. Oh, there it goes!
The ships that come in here power up for the people on the ground, and we have a joke about, we call it dazzle duty. You know, they come in to show us that they are here and make themselves known. And it's amazing because they'll come in and they'll do a tremendous burst of light and power up, and you feel it. And after they power up, they'll usually make a nice turn or make a course change or whatever. I have photographs of these ships that are just a brilliant light. And then they start stepping their frequencies down, and you can see it becoming more and more physical. And in the end, it looks organic. It's amazing, but it's a big pill-shaped, and it looks like it's made out of some kind of living organic material.
So we have these exotic jets chasing exotic fireballs, as they might describe
Yes.
them. Do we also have black helicopters?
I have some great footage of black helicopters that visit us on a regular basis, and some other helicopters too that seem to be retrofitted, and they're older helicopters, but they have jet engines in them, and they have some incredible gear on them. And again, they're very, very dark green, but
so they're not all black?
No, they're not all black.
12:35 Monday. Yeah, I got a good image of him. No markings.
And they have strange turrets underneath them, like a giant pie dish with all this gear on it that rotates, and tubes on the front, these big tubes and all this gear. I asked people in the Air Force about these helicopters and said, oh yeah, we've seen them. When they land a distance away, and they have their own people that fuel them, that take care of them. You can't go anywhere near these helicopters.
James has also seen stealth bombers and filmed military helicopters equipped with powerful searchlights, for some reason operating over his sanctuary during daylight. He says perhaps they were trying to fool him into making a fool of himself by claiming this is UFO footage. It isn't.
UFOs have a higher clearance rating than nuclear bombs. It's amazing as far as keeping it quiet.
Gemini astronaut Gordon Cooper, a hero to Americans who are rightly proud of their public space program, did not keep completely quiet about UFOs. He said as a fighter pilot in Germany, he chased UFOs, and after leaving NASA, he's reported as saying he'd lived with a secret imposed on all astronauts, that radar captures unknown objects every day. Cooper, in fact, believed Earth was being visited by very advanced beings not of this world. But that's something the public has never been told officially.
So anything that NASA experiences or SETI experiences with UFOs have to go through NSA, where they decide whether it gets released or not, and it dies right there.
Holy smokes, this guy's big. This is coming in.
Look at this guy. Do you see this guy coming in? We got one on the treetops and one going overhead.
A while back, we issued a statement called the ECETI Challenge, and both with NASA too as well. And we said we'll put all of our evidence on the table.
Whoa! Look at that! Huge! Look at that thing. Oh, it doubled. There it goes. It's doubling. Huge. It's split into two. It's split into two. Woo. Thank you very much. Now it has another one. Whoa! It's doubled. Oh, now it's going back. It's morphing back into. Oh, yeah. Oh no, it's three. It's three. No, it's two now. I see. I can see. It's totally doing this. Whoa! Whoa! Ah. Check it out, man.
And we have probably over 60 or 70 hours of footage of UFOs here that are coming in. They're responding to the people on the ground. They're landing. They're morphing from 1 to 4, back to 1 again, making right-angle turns and exploding in tremendous balls of light and making a turn and then moving off.
That's a big tower. Holy shit.
That thing's huge. There, it's going back down again.
And we have all of this footage as well as photographs of metallic craft as well. And we agreed to take all of this footage, put it on the table, and they could put all their footage on the table of UFOs, and whoever has the best footage walks away with the funding. And so nobody took us up on that, unfortunately. But the other part of the process was, too, is that all of the footage is public domain after that. It's available to everybody. And they definitely did not want to go for that challenge. I think the reasons why they're not making it available to the public are many-fold. One is basically whoever has the best technology in wartime usually wins the war. And so in the interest of national security, they didn't want other people to know that we've been back engineering these projects and developing weaponry and things of that nature from crash sites. And General Corso wrote a very good book about that, about all the back engineered technology, which involves computer chips and microwave and fiber optics, and all of these things were gleaned out of the many crash sites that they've picked up the wreckage and back engineered. A lot of the people were saying that the people just aren't ready yet to know about this, but that's completely bogus, because a Times CNN poll just stated that 80% of the people believe that UFOs are real and there is a government cover-up. So to me, the government cover-up is over with if 80% of the people believe that they're involved in this.
Look at that. Oh my God. Look at the purple coming off. Can you see it?
Yeah.
And as we said before, there were low-level contacts in the past, but now it's evolving to a much higher level contact, you might say, and the benevolent and spiritually and technologically advanced beings are coming in now.
It is not up to extraterrestrials to lower their frequency to reach our state. It is all to do with us raising our frequencies to where they are.
And this is the part that's not covered, that's not being addressed, because a lot of the people that are in the positions that could address this don't have the spiritual awareness to even understand this phenomenon. They haven't risen to the occasion. The fearlessness it takes to bring this message out isn't there, because they're so afraid of being ridiculed or being laughed at or their careers ending.
Recording time code, as he's filmed UFOs over many years, has been a practice that adds credibility to the scores of hours of footage of UFOs filmed at James Gilliland's Trout Lake property.
Whoa, he's lighting up. Oh, he's lighting up. Paul! Whoa! Whoa, did you see that?
Now, there must be a difference between a UFO, a high-tech, top-secret craft, and satellites and space stations. How do you tell the difference?
The way we discern what is a true UFO and what is not is that one of the things we use is Heavens Above website, which gives us a very clear idea of what's in our area. Heavens Above provides us with all the data concerning the visible satellites that we can see crossing overhead. And usually there's only 2 or 3 a night, according to that data. not 50 a night, which we see almost on a regular basis. We usually see at least 10 to 50. I've seen over 100 at times. But the other thing is we'll know exactly when the space station is flying over. They have this new project called Genesis up there, and it's on heavens above. The Iridium flares are on heavens above, and EVASTAT, which is another big satellite that puts out quite a light. So we're tracking this and eliminating any man-made craft. The contact for the masses is already underway. It's been underway for some time, and what they're doing is they're making themselves visible now much more than before. Madrid just had hundreds of ships flying over, the capital of Spain. China is seeing all kinds of UFO activity. Mexico, it's unprecedented with thousands of ships in the air. I've seen footage of ships over Mexico where the whole frame is full of UFOs, and they're all moving synchronistically. It's just amazing. But you couldn't even count them. I was counting, 200 plus in just one frame, and that was just a small part of the flotilla. So this is happening on a regular basis, Peru, Brazil, everywhere, and it's headline news. It's total headline news there, but where is our press? Why? You've got a whole flotilla flying over capitals of countries that are being witnessed by thousands of people, but why is that not in our news? We have to ask that question. And the answer is quite simple. The news is totally controlled.
In January 2007, 2 months after the event, the media reported that a UFO was sighted over Chicago's O'Hare Airport by pilots and ground crew. It hovered, then shot up through the clouds. Officialdom, as always, dismissed it as a weather phenomenon. But how do you dismiss former Arizona State Governor Fife Symington, also a pilot, who tells the Arizona Star that the lights seen over Phoenix a decade ago were from another world?
I think if I had control of the news, I would put more spiritual content, more positive content, more information concerning fuelless energy breakthroughs, which is also taboo. You never hear about that. I would bring forward major cures for diseases which have been held back. I would bring forward people that are on the forefront of these technologies and this new wisdom coming out. And I would turn the news into a full-service organization that's dedicated to the awakening and healing of humanity and the earth, not holding humanity down in darkness and fear and terror, which is basically what it's set up to do.
So who is James Gilliland? A man on a sanctuary who's had near-death experiences, UFO visits, and contact with advanced ETs. But as others on the forefront of radical thinking have discovered, peace often follows adversity, which can lead to deep reflection on serious spiritual issues, extensive and life-changing study of many great teachings, and eventually a sense that the personality is not the yardstick by which to introduce oneself.
I have a hard time talking about myself. I'd rather be referred to as nobody, because I'm not really important. What's important is this information gets out to people and helps people to awaken to the wisdom within themselves. And if you are nobody, there's nobody that needs defending when you bring out this outrageous information.
Near-death experiences are not everybody's experience.
Mm-hmm.
How do they happen to you, and how often?
The first experiences I had when I was about 5 years old, I had bronchial pneumonia, and I kept going in between worlds. And I had a woman that appeared to me, and she was dressed in blue and had electric blue eyes, just beautiful. And her energy was beautiful as well, extremely loving and nurturing. And she kept coming to me, and she would stroke my head and just be with me and talk to me. And then she gave me this substance that seemed like ice cream, but it wasn't. It wasn't cold, but it had the texture of like ice cream. And I would eat this ice cream, and then I would get better all of a sudden. And this happened 4 or 5 times. They called my parents and said, "We don't think he's going to make it through the night." And this
You
woman,
were in hospital?
Yes, I was in a hospital. And I was one of those strange kids that had the invisible friends that would talk to me, you know, and I would talk about life, and they would give me answers, and I was extremely sensitive as a kid. And the biggest trouble...
But again, the majority of adults would say imagination.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A lot of people would say that is imagination, but it's my own experience. And I would feel what people were feeling. I would hear what they were thinking. And then also what they were saying was always not congruent. And they would talk to me and give me detailed information on why this was happening so I could depersonalize it. After that experience, I moved into the world of social consciousness, going through, you know, elementary school and high school, and you know, making my mark in the world, trying to be accepted and approved of, you know, trying to, you know, win, you know, the love of my life through outer appearances, you know, because all that programming you get, you know, you've got to have the fancy car, the fancy house, the fancy clothes. You got to drink the right beer to get the right woman, you know, and to get the, you know, the beautiful bronze girl in the bathing suit, you know, that's playing volleyball, you know.
Were you successful?
Actually, I was very successful at acquiring all those things until I realized that they were meaningless and that I was going out about it all the wrong way. And then I had the real awakening was when I had the drowning experience, and I was out body surfing. And
whereabouts?
It was a place called Little La Corona down in Southern California, next to what they call the Wedge. We're way out on a sandbar with about 6 to 8 foot waves and just having a great time. And the next thing you know, these sneaker waves came in. A sneaker wave is where 3 waves will back up together and they come in out of nowhere, and it's usually because of a storm or some other instability out in the ocean. And these waves came in and they were measured, they were in the newspaper, they were 17 to 25 foot waves. And we were pretty far out on a sandbar and there was nowhere to go. There's just this big, huge wall of water coming at you. And when the first wave hit me, I was doing everything I could do to get under it. And it crashed right on top of me and dislocated my shoulder and knocked the wind out of me and just hit me like a fly. And I felt like a massive fly swatter. It hit me and held me under forever. And when I finally came up after that wave hit, I couldn't get any air because it hit me so hard my diaphragm was collapsed and I was trying to breathe, had the wind knocked out of me. And the next wave came, pulled me under again and held me forever. And so when I finally struggled to get up out of the second wave, the third wave came and then I just gave up. I said, well, that's it. You know, and I remember the tunnel of light that everybody talks about. I went through the tunnel. I didn't have people there to greet me. I saw a lot of levels, and I just blasted through these levels and kept going. And I ended up in what they call the golden plane of bliss, where you're held in the arms of God or the cradle of God. My experience there was that I was a light being. There was a greater light and a greater consciousness surrounding me. I still had a sense of self, but there's a much greater self that was surrounding me, but I was a part of that. And we had a communication going back and forth, and it was the most loving, joyous, secure, blissful energy you could imagine. There's no words that just can describe this experience. I had no understanding of myself as being dead. That seemed to be a whole nother something I left behind because I was fully awake and fully alive and fully conscious. I just didn't have the limitations of the body anymore, you know, in that realm. And I had a conversation with this consciousness. And the first thing I asked was, how can I stay? Because the bliss and the love and the joy is just overwhelming. The voice came back to me, and it was a transmission, thought-to-thought transmission. And it said, I've never told any of my children when to come or go. That's free will. And so I had to start letting go of my old images of God that were given me, because through the Catholic Church. Actually, I had to go to a Catholic church when I was in the desert because it was the only school there. But I had to let go of that. And the second thing I asked was, how can I earn the right to stay? And the voice came back to me and says, you cannot earn what is given freely and unconditionally. And so I'm going, wait a minute, here's the program I have to release, that I have to win favor of God, or I have to do all these things to get love and acceptance and approval of God. So I had to let go of that program because it was given freely and unconditionally. And then the third thing I asked was, how can I serve? And the voice came back to me, and it said, what do you want to do? What brings you joy? And I was waiting for this big list. You know, you have to go down and heal Bobby and Sue and give a message to this person that their husband's okay. And I was waiting for this big long list of all these things I was going to have to do. And all the Source wanted me to do was do what brought me joy. So I thought about it, and I said, I want to come back. I want to return and teach people about the true nature of God. The last words I heard from the Source were, as you wish. And the next thing I know, I felt myself back in my body, and I felt somebody grabbing my arm and pulling me in out of the water. And I was crawling up to the beach, and I passed out. And I woke up in a big pool of water. The water was coming out of my lungs and everything, with somebody yelling my name. The near-death experiences started me on a path where, especially the drowning, I wanted to connect again with that pure love and joy and bliss and reestablish that connection and understand it, because I didn't really have any framework to understand it. And when I returned, I was ultra sensitive again, even more sensitive than I was when I was a kid. And I was struggling because I was experiencing the whole gamut. I was experiencing incredible beings of light and very loving, powerful beings, but I was also experiencing some lower discarnate beings and some forces that weren't so nice, you might say. And that's what led me into the teachings of the Inner Christ, which is a very powerful teaching that teaches you how to heal unseen negative influences, how to manifest, how to maintain your energies, and make sure you're receiving guidance of the highest levels. And from there, I went to the Tibetan Foundation, where I was certified as one of their best channels, mainly because of the near-death experience. I was a wide-open channel. One of the experiences I had after the near-death experience is that within the Tibetan Foundation, I left my body again. I went to a very high plane where I met this being by the name of Ezekiel, which is a merged energy of Cassia, feminine energy, and Ezekiel, the original contactee, you might say, that we know of. You know, he talks about these metallic ships in the firmament coming down. They had bronze feet like calves. They had fire and brimstone coming out from underneath them. When they landed, they sounded like 1,000 rushing rivers. And, you know, what is that with today's mentality or awareness? You listen to this and you go, boy, that was a ship. You know, out of it come cherubim, which were wheels within wheels with flashing lights all around them. They were moving all around. So obviously that was an encounter. In Santa Cruz, I had it made there, basically. I had a beautiful house right on the beach. I had a nice hot tub, and the classes were going great, and I just pretty much rode my bike everywhere, and I kept having these visions, and I would see the buildings. I mean, I would see the ranch here and what I wanted to create here over and over again in my mind. But at the same time, I was having visions of some major earth changes coming to the Santa Cruz area, and I saw some major earthquakes hitting that area. And I also saw some tsunamis in the future that were going to come in. And I gave the exact date and time of the big San Francisco earthquake.
United States Geological Survey records tell us that at 5 in the afternoon on October 17, 1989, the San Andreas fault system had its first major quake since 1906. 62 people died. Almost 4,000 were injured. The epicenter was located near Loma Prieta Peak in the Santa Cruz Mountains, approximately 9 miles northeast of James Gilliland's home in Santa Cruz. It caused over $6 billion in damage. Over 18,000 homes and than 2,600 businesses were damaged, and about 3,000 people were left homeless.
And the only thing I missed was, I was told it would be 6.9, and at the end it was 7.1, but the first readings were 6.9.
The prayer of St. Francis, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can. The nooks and rockeries of James' sanctuary contain reminders that a similar message has been delivered to different cultures throughout the ages. And having come back from the dead, James now embraces and expresses a very broad understanding of humanity and spirituality.
After the Tibetan Foundation, I went into about 6 years of intense yoga training with different yogis. And I also went through an initiation with a Tibetan master as well. And what's interesting, each one of these masters recognized something very different about me and got very excited when we met. And they knew that I had a very big mission here on Earth. And all of them validated the work that I'm doing.
One of the most extraordinary experiences James has had when it comes to teachers was when he heard of Ramtha, the teacher of ancient wisdom channeled by J.Z. Knight, at the Ramtha School of Enlightenment in Yelm, Washington, not far from James' sanctuary at Trout Lake.
My experience at the Ramtha School was before it was a school. It wasn't even a school yet. It was in the very beginning. And I sat up on a mound meditating, and I heard a lot of negativity about the school, and I'd never listened to that, because usually when there's a lot of gossip, there's usually a pretty good teacher doing their work, because they're rattling everybody's cages. So I always tell people, if you're ready to heal your stuff, go see Ramtha. If you want it sugar-coated and you want to take your time, go see somebody else. You know? But my experience with Ramtha was, I sat on the mound meditating, and I connected in with Ramtha, and I felt the wind come up and the breeze. And I asked 3 questions. And I said, if you really are coming through Jay-Z, and this is for real, I'd like you to answer these questions, because, you know, you're omniscient. I'm sure you know I'm talking to you. Just speaking your name and focusing on you makes a connection. And when I got to the school, I was kind of embarrassed, because there was about 500 people there. And I said, oh my God, that was pretty arrogant of me, you know, to expect Ramtha to come out on stage and answer my 3 questions with all these people here. But he did. He walked right up on stage and pointed right at me and answered my 3 questions.
Now, as I said to you, I was a Catholic priest for all those years. I was a professor of theology for 16 years. I was a lecturer in theology prior to that. I was appointed to a very elite group in 1980. Called the International Theological Commission, which was a group appointed to advise the Pope. And in that role, I had all of the fabled theologians of my student days. They were on that commission with me, the great men we looked up to, whose books we read and studied and analysed. All the libraries, the Vatican Library included. And I still couldn't find answers to those great questions. Well, the first glimmer I began to get was when I found Ramtha's teachings. I'm a member of Ramtha School of Enlightenment for many years. And that gave an entire new dimension to everything I had studied before and what I focused on studying from then on. So that is something that I treasure greatly. I'm not here to recruit for Ramtha School, but we do need teachers in this regard.
The second event I went to was a one-on-one with just about 20, 25 people there, very small group. And we all got to ask personal questions. And he turned around and just nailed me, pointed at me and said, Master, he said, what say you? And I wasn't ready for it. And he says, what do you see? And
I said, I see a very wise and powerful, loving being, you know, a master teacher. And he said, Master, he said, what you see is you. He said, because if it wasn't within self, you couldn't recognize it. And he said, it's time you get on with it and own it and get on with your work. And they said, so be it. And that was it. And that's how all this came about. After that, I got on with my work. There's a lot of God salesmen out there. There's a lot of people that need the fame and the notoriety. I'm not one of those people. I love my hermit life. I love my time with nature. I love to spend time with other people that are on this path and that are spiritually motivated. As far as becoming a guru or being worshipped by the masses, that is furthest out of my consciousness, and there's no way I want to have anything to do with that role whatsoever.
Those who have put out the thought of conscious contact and then seen a UFO do a power-up know for certain that they have contacted and been contacted by something out of this world. And then those who are becoming enlightened also know there's another type of UFO, much closer to home, waiting to power up, waiting to be discovered.
The greatest UFO we're ever going to experience on the planet is our own physical bodies. And when we can increase our frequencies, we can actually move out of these bodies and experience all of these other planes and dimensions. We have that capability within us. And we also have the capability to actually take the body with us as well in what they call the ascension process. So we have the ability to jump to other planes, other dimensions, biolocate, other timelines.
So those are Torsian vortexes, and if you ever see one of those and you walk into it, be sure to walk out exactly on the same place you went in, because there are time shifts as well as place shifts.
It's totally unlimited, the potential we have within ourselves. I realize that each individual has that spark, and some have ignited it to some level, more so than others. And it just depends on how much we've expanded in consciousness and awareness as to how much we're aware of that divine potential within us. And that is what I was teaching, focusing on a very high spiritual path and assisting others to attain their own God consciousness, whatever you want to call it. I had no idea that the ETs would enter into this until later.
The ET connection would come to James at Mount Adams, revered for centuries by Native Americans. The Yakima tribe has many stories of unusual craft and lights in its vicinity, and for James, himself part Cherokee, it was as if the mountain was calling, at least in visions, which were now a regular feature of his life.
I was receiving visions over and over again, and the visions showed me this beautiful mountain, a river on the eastern border, and then a little mountain behind me. And I actually saw the letters Little Mountain, and I didn't know what that. I said, why are they focusing on the little mountain? It makes no sense whatsoever when you have this massive Mount Adams in front of you, which is just beautiful. And I kept seeing this vision over and over again, and so I grabbed a map of the United States, and I got a pendulum, and I was going over the map to find it. My hand got real hot over Trout Lake, and it just started spinning radically, the pendulum, and I marked it on the map. And my whole focus was to create a template of heaven on earth, how we can live a wholesome spiritual life in harmony with nature and each other, and also grow our own foods and grow very high vibrational energetic foods and things of that nature as well, but to cover the whole gamut, not just one aspect of it.
So something triggered you at some point to make the move?
Yeah, it was a combination of seeing the vision and my purpose, knowing that I was supposed to build this template, a much bigger center, to do a lot of the things that I was teaching there. And at the same time, I also had the visions of the earth changes coming to that area.
James has photographic evidence of the higher frequencies and realms that he's experienced. While the human brain filters certain frequencies, digital cameras record energy fields and entities that are unseen by the average human mind. Detractors may attempt to explain these anomalies away as lens aberrations, but the evidence persists. Orbs, for example, which are conscious but disembodied beings, and plasma entities as well, are frequently photographed at James Ranch.
Don't jump up in 10 minutes during the soap opera while the ads are on and go out and snap 3 or 4 miserable pictures and hope to get dramatic orb manifestations, because they will treat you with the disdain with which you're treating them. Some are like this, some of them are golden, the others are infrared. This is straight up into a black night sky.
And this is a black night sky where visitors are engaged in what's termed a sky watch. They're scanning the skies above Mount Adams in the hope of seeing UFOs for themselves, and many do have that experience.
There it goes. Here it goes. It's going. Check it out. Look at that. Thank you.
Critics, of course, continue to deny that any of this is real, but many more have a genuine desire to actually experience visual and conscious contact.
Some of these ships that are coming over here right now, some look like satellites, and some are satellites, and some are not. And the only way you can tell really is through being able to connect with them consciously. But they'll fly high first, and they scan the group and see where you're at in consciousness. And if there's a lot of skepticism and negativity or whatever, they'll stay higher. If we really focus love and joy and bliss out to them and say, hey, we want to see you, we want you to come down, they'll come down as low as the consciousness can rise to the occasion. In the very beginning, some of the ETs that came here, which are what I call low-level contacts, had an agenda, and it wasn't in our highest and best good. And they aligned with people who also had the same consciousness, because the mind in which you seek is the mind which you connect. So we have people that were more focused on technology and war, and that was their whole drive, is to have the best technology to win the wars, and so they connected with some low-level contacts. At the same time, there was another group that came in that said, look, we're not going to give you the technology until you choose peace. And that is the group that we should have aligned ourselves with. But instead, they aligned with the lower evolved ETs, you might say, for technology. And there was a trade involved where they were actually abducting people and using genetics, our genetics, to add to...
With approval?
The abduction scenario was with approval with our own government at the time, and it got a little out of hand. It went far beyond what they expected. And the trade was technology for genetics, because this group is a dying race, and they evolved into pure knowledge. They have very large heads. They're very brilliant in their minds, but they bred emotions out of their race. They came back to and started abducting people to create hybrids.
The great questions are, where did we come from? Why are we here? Well, what if space was in fact the birthplace of DNA as we know it? DNA shared throughout the galaxies by evolving civilizations. And what if our grossly misnamed junk DNA is actually the DNA of the gods, waiting to be activated, and holding within it the keys to our future as genuinely enlightened members of the intergalactic family?
We have extremely incredible genetics on this planet. We have the genetics from the star nations, you might say.
In here we see the original stone carving in Sumeria of a giant instructing people. Their giants were half-human offspring of the Nephilim. They could run 40 miles an hour. They could run a horse down on foot and knock it to the ground with their bare hands.
It's a big smorgasbord or zoo of genetics, you might say. Not just human genetics, but animal and plant genetics as well. So this is such an amazing place because of the diversity of life here, and the diversity of genetics is nowhere else in the universe. And it needs to be preserved because of that.
DNA from Earth might save a dying space race, But the human race, though it has reached for the moon, seems almost oblivious to what's really happening at home. Preoccupied with endless wars, we ignore global warming, hurricanes, widespread destruction, pollution on a global scale, from the melting Antarctic and ozone depletion to the melting Arctic, where wildlife is increasingly endangered. What was once a mother planet that nurtured all its species is now a mother in danger of dying.
The greater family of man, or the off-worlders, you might call them, are deeply concerned with where we're going concerning the environment. You know, we've had the earthquakes and volcanic activity has increased 400%. We've got over 50 plus active volcanoes right now and counting.
How many volcanoes could erupt if prompted by a large gravitational field? This is the location of all the volcanoes on the Earth. That's a lot.
There's undersea volcanoes going off. That's also heating up the ocean.
Look at the yellow there. When it, oh my God. Look at, it's an extremely vigorous eruption going on right now.
There's over 50 dead zones in the ocean right now. One of them is over 700 miles wide. There's another bigger one that's opening up right now. There's no plankton there. So there, again, there's no oxygen.
Dr. Robert Diaz of the Virginia Institute of Marine Science notes that dead zones are most often associated with population areas and nutrient runoff, which can cause complete oxygen depletion and total mortality of marine life. Oregon State University is researching an unusual dead zone-related series of events off the Pacific Northwest. They're finding huge numbers of dead crabs and dead and dying seals suffering from leptospirosis. While the majority of dead zones are less than 1,000 square kilometers, the largest is over 70,000 square kilometers in size.
We're taking out the rainforest, and our forests here, we're raping the forest right now. It's the same thing. When you aggravate that with the pollution and with the increase in CO2 and other emissions, we're actually on a fast track to extinction.
Scientists may not use the words fast track to extinction, but pollution has been building and accelerating around the world for centuries. Unburned aviation gases added to the problem, with the potential to catch fire. Other scientists have been monitoring global warming and melting ice caps for decades. Satellite tracking over Antarctica is helping supply information on how rapidly that continent is seeing its ice sheets and glaciers crumble and melt. Since the recent breakup of the Larsen B ice shelf, glaciers in Antarctica have been moving toward the ocean up to 8 times faster than previously. And at the other end of the world, decades of strange behavior. Once, the ice reflected sunlight back into space, but as the ice melts, more sunlight hits the water, heating the ocean, and that accelerates next season's ice melt. And this is what's happened in just the past 25 years. The serious consequence of all that fresh water flowing into the ocean is that the Atlantic conveyor belt, the current that regulates climate around the world, will eventually stall. A report commissioned for the U.S. Department of Defense says that could happen abruptly, perhaps as soon as 2010, and Europe will have a Siberian climate. The sun is building to a period of solar maximum storms in 2010 or 2011. Nothing like it has been seen since the world became dependent on microchips. Huge coronal mass ejections are expected. One of these could knock out everything on Earth that generates or uses electricity. A small flare in December 2006 disrupted airplane GPS landing systems for 15 minutes. Fortunately, none of the thousands of planes that were in the air actually crashed that time. Although few dare mention it, James says a dire scenario is unfolding. To quote a report prepared for the U.S. Department of Defense in 2003, the gradual climate change scenario may be a dangerous act of self-deception. The plausibility of abrupt climate change is higher than most of the scientific community and perhaps all of the political community is prepared for. Evidence suggests that such an abrupt climate change could occur in the near future.
This same scenario has been gone over again and again and again, ending up in major cataclysms on the planet, both brought about naturally and also through technology.
The Earth nearly died during another cataclysm much earlier than the flood of Noah, destroying the great civilizations of Atlantis and Mu. This is a very ancient map, by the way, called the Newsy map, and it shows Mu on the left-hand side of your screen and Atlantis on the right-hand side of your screen. If you ever get the two confused in your mind, now you know where they are. Of course, they're sunk beneath the sea for now.
We're moving into this same epic, you might say, journey where we're right at the apex of it again, where we're going to choose, are we going to destroy ourselves and allow technology to supersede spirituality, or are we going to go through a major spiritual awakening and realize that we live in this incredible sea of consciousness, like quantum physics tells us that everything is connected?
Just how connected is the Earth? That is graphically illustrated in this U.S. Geological Survey website animation that shows just 1 week of earthquake activity. The bigger the square, the bigger the quake, and they're happening all the time. Note how the Kuril Islands, between Russia and Japan, which had experienced regular 5+ quakes for months, has an 8.5 and then a 6.1 quake on the same day. Tsunami warnings were issued, but fortunately, nothing like the devastating 2004 Banda Aceh tsunami occurred this time. That one took almost 250,000 lives. James' visions of tsunamis hitting the west coast of the United States have also yet to be realized, but he believes that nature, Mother Earth, is rebelling against decades of exploitation.
You know, we need to get our act together and realize that what's more important, you know, making that almighty dollar or taking a breath.
Trout Lake has short, hot, dry summers. It's home to organic farmers and good people, and a fine place to camp if you're attending a conference at the sanctuary. But then winter arrives, making for difficult access through snow that can easily bury a car overnight. James has his detractors, critics, he says, who suffer from cognitive dissonance, which raises an interesting question.
There's a question I've always wanted to ask a tractor driver, and that is, what is cognitive dissonance?
Oh, cognitive dissonance is the total inability to accept any belief outside of your own.
Does that translate perhaps another definition as a closed mind?
Yes, no matter how much evidence or how much proof you give somebody, they'll automatically just refuse to accept any reality outside their own box, you might say.
Is this a widespread disorder?
I'd say most of the earth is suffering to one degree or another with it.
And there's a cure?
I believe the cure is to just, again, you know, face life with an open mind, a loving heart, and pure intent, and allow the universe to teach you things.
But are we willing to learn that UFOs can look like clouds?
They could be actually sitting within a cloud and watching us at any time. But I'm not saying all clouds are UFOs. There are natural formations of clouds that are lenticular and others of that nature, but it is highly possible that the fields around the UFOs generate kind of a cloud formation around the ship. They're talking a lot about the future and how we have to prepare, and there's going to be a lot of cleanup on every level of consciousness, the environment, everything, and nature is going to be very active in this process. As far as nature is concerned, our whole heliosphere, our solar system, is moving to a new place in the universe where there's the leading edge of it as we're moving is 1,000 times brighter, and all the planets are heating up. They're putting out 4 times more light. They're going through atmospheric changes. The sun is reacting to this, throwing off massive coronal mass ejections and solar flares, and that's affecting our weather. It's affecting our communication. It's affecting our consciousness as well. We've just seen the beginning of the Earth changes. They're going to escalate. It's going to be very intense in the next couple of years.
James says that just as there are 4 seasons in a year, which means everything from ants to humans must prepare for winter, there are much longer planetary cycles or seasons, spanning thousands of years, and we are in a season of planetary changes, which have always involved global earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanic activity that creates magma vents like Mount Adams.
Mount Adams has a very, very long history of UFO activity. It has at least a 100-year history of people seeing the ships. They've got forest rangers and fire tower operators and a lot of the police, the tribal police, everybody. It just has a real long history of UFO activity. In the ancient times, they said that when they're wounded or people got wounded or really sick or ill, they used to take them to a certain place, and they would come from the interior of the mountain and pick their sick or their wounded up and take them into the mountain, and then the shaman or the chief would get a message, like a telepathic message, it's time, and they would go back up and pick their people up, and they'd be completely well. So there's a lot of history about interaction with those on the interior, which is where the UFOs are coming in and out of this mountain.
Yeah, okay, I can see the mountain now. Whoa.
Yeah, just...
There it is. I got it.
See how bright they are?
Yeah, okay, I've got the mountain.
Come on, light up.
Whoa,
Wow.
I've got those 2 guys.
Awesome.
And I've got the mountain. Boys on the mountain. There they are.
Wow.
Watching ships power up and come out of the mountain and actually go into the mountain, they seem to dematerialize and go straight through the mountain and then rematerialize on the inside. So it's my understanding, according to the legends, that there's a base there. There's a complete underground city there. I've heard legends of it as a crystal city, very beautiful place. All I can go by is the legends, having not gone there myself.
Oh, there he goes, there he goes. Look at him. Look at him power up. Did you see that?
Yeah,
I got that whole thing on film.
I got it.
For years, James and others have filmed UFOs with basic consumer camcorders. In other words, as James says,
anybody can shoot UFOs. All it takes is an open mind, loving heart, and pure intent, and put the thought out there, and they'll find you eventually. So it's nothing special about photographing UFOs.
Before the flood, they were here. There were giants in the earth in those days. But in Numbers chapter 13, verse 33, it says again, and there we saw giants, the sons of Anak, which come of the giants, and we were as grasshoppers.
Now, giants, I discovered, of course, that the word in the Hebrew text was not giants. It was Nephilim, and that means the ones that come down from above. So the proper translation is there at the bottom. It's not when the sons of God came into the daughters of men and got involved in all this hanky-panky. Instead, it's the bottom line. When the sons of the gods came into the daughters of men is the proper translation.
All of those ancient texts talk about the different ships. They say they're ships that are physical, There's ships that are pure energy. There's ships that are magnetized light ships. There's ships that are pure consciousness.
The Nephilim were only about 200 strong. That's not enough to conquer a planet. So they worked through the kings. The giants were their offspring, including a tribe known as the Nephilim. The kings are actually ruling the earth, but the Nephilim are behind them, advising them, giving them technology, giving them social structure and social order.
There are also frescoes all around Europe in the churches on the walls which show depictions of very holy scenes. One I love is where Jesus is being baptized, and there's this beautiful gold disc above him sending all these rays down on top of them. So there's a very, very long history of advanced civilizations interacting with the earth.
And this is the first sentence of Genesis. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et ha'aretz. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, many years ago when I was studying Hebrew, I had some difficulty. The first was this one, the word Elohim. I am in Hebrew is a plural, and yet Elohim is supposed to be the name for God, one God. It's well known that in ancient Hebrew writing, that if you're dealing with fundamental issues, say like the creation of the world, you always began with the first letter of the alphabet because they were big on symbolism. Yet here we have the quintessentially important account of beginnings, and it doesn't begin with the first letter, Aleph, A. What does it begin with? B, Beth. So where did the A go? And if we put it back, what do we get? Ab Rashi bara Elohim, the father of the beginnings, or the father at first, created the Elohim, the heavens and the earth. Or he created the gods, the heaven and the earth.
The establishment of the center here, there was many levels to it. One of the levels, the original name for it was Sattva Sanctuary, which means to aspire to the highest levels of wisdom and beauty and art and you know, basically reach the highest levels of creativity we can. And then it evolved into ECETI, which stands for Enlightened Contact with Extraterrestrial Intelligence. You know, they've transcended war, disease, poverty. They've transcended all religious boundaries and cultural boundaries. And they have that wisdom and that technology to share with humanity, which is in direct conflict with those who are capitalizing at the expense of humanity, the earth. The main problem is on this planet is the leadership. And the leadership does not reflect the desires and wishes of the masses. And there's another element involved, which is Hollywood, which gets a lot of funding to keep this negative agenda going, which is very sad, because if you talk to most of the kids now about ETs, the first image they give you is either a gray, which is abducting people or experiencing a lot of fear around it, or they're here to conquer us, you know, slice and dice us and turn us into fertilizer and or eat us or whatever, or they're bugs that are coming here to destroy the universe.
Hollywood has certainly had an impact. Meanwhile, lovers of the Armageddon scenario, and even some of today's feet-on-the-ground scientists, envisage civilization as we know it disappearing from this planet, perhaps much sooner than later. Some worry that Earth will eventually destroy itself with our help. That's the unspoken end result of global warming and increasing natural disasters. But those who love terror, including masters of the past and present, and off-worlders as James Gilliland calls them, have all had a common message of hope about humanity's true potential, which is why they've set the example of spiritual awakening.
I think the common thread between all of the masters and the ETs as well, because they're giving the same messages that all of the masters have been giving for thousands of years. And, you know, it follows under the understandings that that there is no separation in omnipresence, that we're all connected, we all came from the same source, we all go back to the same source. It doesn't matter what your culture is, what your religion is, what your beliefs are. And they teach the basic universal principles such as universal peace and brother-sisterly love and living in harmony with each other and the planet. And all of the masters have given us this message, and a lot of these messages were inspired by the ETs over the past and then got twisted and warped by kings and institutions. But the main message right now that they're giving us is they are very concerned with our consciousness on the earth and our primitive, aggressive, warlike nature. They want us to let that go. They want us to release the past, because these old grudges and old belief systems are what is creating our tomorrow and what is creating the wars and all the other problems that we're having. They want us to stop with the greed and the competition and start cooperating and working together.
Is it so hard to imagine that among the billions of stars and quadrillions of planets out there are indeed greater civilizations? How hard would it be to be a greater civilization than the one that currently inhabits Earth? Instead of reaching for the stars to meet those greater beings, we have reached for our guns, and we've become one of the most warlike species in the universe. We use, or threaten to use, atomic weapons to ensure peace. We talk of peace. We fight for peace. We kill for peace. We embrace war.
First of all, there's no such thing as a holy war. Every war is because one king or leader wanted what another king or leader had. And that is the main drive or motivation behind these wars. When both sides are praying to God for victory, what does God do? The first greeting we give these off-world visitors is aggression. And we send up our best technologies in the area to greet them and attempt to shoot them down, steal their technology, and use it in the war industry. And that's the program right now. That's changing right now because we realize that option is not really working very well, because these beings coming here now are so far beyond anything that we have. There's really nothing we can do about them. We have a golden opportunity right now to join the rest of the universe in peace and to unite with these beings that are extremely spiritually and technologically advanced, far beyond anything we can imagine. And they can assist us to transcend war and disease and clean up our environment. And to me, that's the ultimate goal. That's our goal here at ECETI, to bridge the gap and to rise to the occasion so we can have these contacts and can share in this information. And that is our whole goal, and take this information and disseminate it out to humanity, the Earth, to help us in our own quantum leap and in consciousness and evolution.